Colonial Pipeline CEO confirms the company paid $4.4 million to the ransomware attackers. He reveals his reason behind the controversial action. Is the state seceding? Several counties in Oregon vote to consider joining the state of Idaho. The Biden administration is lifting sanctions on Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. U.S. officials say it's to strengthen ties with Germany, but there are consequences. This comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken engaged in high-level dialogue with his Russian counterpart for the first time today. The two leaders discussed the many disagreements the countries have with one another, along with areas of cooperation. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Colonial Pipeline CEO explains why he paid the ransom. His action sparked a lot of discussion about whether it would embolden hackers more. But first, is Oregon seceding? Several counties in Oregon vote to consider joining the state of Idaho. It's part of a movement to break away from the state that has long been dominated by politicians in Portland. Voters in 5 counties approved various measures that require county officials to take steps to look into moving the Idaho border west to incorporate the counties. The grassroots group Move Oregon's Border for a Greater Idaho aims to have these rural eastern counties join Idaho because they believe they would be better off with Idaho's more conservative political leadership. Lead petitioner Mike McCarter said in a statement, "This election proves that rural Oregon wants out of Oregon," adding if Oregon really believes in liberal values such as self-determination, the legislature won't hold our counties captive against our will. If we are allowed to vote for which government officials we want, we should be allowed to vote for which government we want as well. According to the statement, on average, voters were 62% in favor. 2 state representatives plan to introduce legislation to move the Idaho-Oregon border next January. The bid appears to be a long shot since it would require a formal vote in the Democratic-controlled Oregon legislature. Then a deal would need to be ratified by the U.S. Congress. Now, what about Idaho's response? The group Citizens for Greater Idaho welcomes the proposal, inviting Oregonians, writing on its page that Idaho has lower tax rate and a lower cost of living. Idaho held a hearing recently where state legislatures reacted to the proposal. There were mixed responses. Chair of the House committee welcomed the idea, saying, "With everybody moving to Idaho, it isn't lost on me the addition of landmass, water, resources, agriculture, timber. There are some appealing things to Idahoans, at least in my estimation, to even consider this." One of Idaho's more conservative lawmakers, Republican Representative Ben Adams, wondered why Oregon lawmakers would agree to the plan, saying, "How is it being received right now by the state of Oregon?" He asked, how hard would they be fighting to make it not happen? Most states don't like to lose their resources to their neighbors. Citizens of Greater Idaho echoed the chances aren't high, writing, "But this is a long shot that is worth a shot." Looking at the history of the U.S., changing state lines has been rare. When it did happen, it was before the 20th century. For example, Kentucky was created from Virginia's territory in 1792. Maine was created from Massachusetts in 1820, and West Virginia in 1863 was admitted into the U.S. That's when Union states and counties separated themselves from the Confederate ones during the Civil War. Now, as for the Constitution, under Article 4, Section 3, it states, "New states may be admitted by the Congress into this Union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of 2 or more states, or parts of states, without the consent of the legislatures of the states concerned, as well as of the Congress." In other words, no state can split away without consent from both sides and Congress. According to the National Constitution Center, this clause is important. That's because only 13 states were ratified or formally signed into being, while the rest grew out of this clause. Now, let's turn to the Colonial Pipeline and the CEO's controversial decision to pay the ransom. Chief Executive Joseph Blount confirmed the company paid $4.4 million to ransomware attackers. He acknowledged the decision was controversial in a statement to the Wall Street Journal, saying, "I will admit that I wasn't comfortable seeing money go out the door to people like this, but it was the right thing to do for the country." He says the pipeline had never been shut since its construction. The breach shut down the 5,500-mile-long network of pipelines for several days, triggering fuel shortages and panic buying in some East Coast states. At one point, more than 15,000 stations were out of gas in the eastern U.S. Colonial Pipeline spans over 5,000 miles from Texas to New Jersey. It is responsible for about half of the East Coast's fuel supply, transporting roughly 2.5 million barrels of gasoline and other fuels daily, and it hauls more than 100 million gallons of fuel a day from Gulf Coast refineries to major hubs up the coast. By last Wednesday, the national average price had already hit its highest point in 6.5 years, with a gallon of gas averaging $3. Colonial Pipeline announced operations were back to normal on May 15th. Saying in a statement, "We have returned the system to normal operations, delivering millions of gallons per hour to the markets we serve." Blount said that it will take months of restoration work and millions of dollars to recover some systems that were affected by the hack. Now, according to the Government Accountability Office, the attack shed light on the vulnerabilities facing the nation's energy infrastructure. They say this attack demonstrates an urgent need to address cybersecurity challenges facing the nation. According to the New York Times, the nation could only last 3 to 5 more days with the pipeline shut down. After that, there would be widespread disruptions across several sectors, including transit, chemical factories, and refinery operations. That's citing a confidential report from the Energy and Homeland Security departments. Some have argued that the payment encourages the group to commit similar acts. The head of the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Agency warned more cyber attacks may be coming. And Biden signed an executive order last Wednesday that he says will improve the nation's cybersecurity. It seeks to better equip federal agencies with cybersecurity tools. It also encourages the private sector, which operates much of the nation's critical infrastructure, to improve its own cybersecurity standards. Under the new order, a system will be enabled on federal networks to continually monitor and respond to cyber threats. It also creates a Cybersecurity Safety Review Board. It'll meet after major cyber attacks to analyze and make recommendations going forward. The FBI earlier last week confirmed that a hacking group known as Darkseid was behind the attack. As for the hacking group, Darkseid announced it was disbanding. The surprise move apparently is not the group's choice. According to a message on the Russian OSINT channel on Telegram, Darkseid lost access to its servers. The message also says an unknown outside source drained the group's cryptocurrency account. Darkseid also said it is releasing decryption tools for all of the victims who were ransomed but who hadn't paid yet. Now, speaking of Russia and pipelines, the Biden administration is lifting sanctions on Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Germany has confirmed the U.S. lifted sanctions regarding the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, including the Russian state-owned company overseeing the project and the CEO. The controversial project allows additional natural gas to flow from Russia to Germany. The German foreign minister is pleased with the decision, calling it a constructive step. Advocates argue it's a key investment for the security of Germany's energy supply, but critics see it as an environmental, geopolitical, and security risk. The U.S. asserts the pipeline will increase Europe's reliance on Russia and that it will endanger the continent's security. That's because Russia has allegedly been interfering in Western democracies, being aggressive in Eastern Europe, and supporting the Syrian president. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board calls the lifting of the sanctions Biden's gift to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The board points to a potential hypocrisy, that is, Biden shutting down the American Keystone XL pipeline while greenlighting Russia's Nord Stream. The board writes, Biden is treating a pipeline that increases Russian influence and income better than one that enhances America's. Former President Trump approved sanctions on any firm that helped the Russian state-owned gas company finish the pipeline. That was in December 2019. On Wednesday, a source told Reuters the State Department's review concluded that the company and its CEO committed sanctionable offenses, but it was in the U.S.'s national interest to waive the sanctions. It is so the U.S. can send a signal to Germany that it is committed to strengthening relations with Germany. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said in a statement the U.S. will sanction those behind the construction of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, but will waive sanctions on any company, its CEO, and its corporate officers. The prior sanctions had delayed the project and put its completion at risk. Now the company says the pipeline is 95% complete, with around 75 miles left to go. And Blinken is set to meet his Russian counterpart for the first time on Wednesday. Secretary Blinken met with top Russian diplomat Sergei Lavrov Wednesday in Iceland. It is the first face-to-face meeting between the country's top diplomats since Biden took office. It comes amid escalating tensions, with the U.S. announcing new Russian sanctions just ahead of the meeting. Blinken says the U.S. side wants to improve relations. He also acknowledges that there are areas of disagreement. The U.S. and Russia recently sparred diplomatically over Russia's military buildup on the Ukraine border and in the Arctic. And the U.S. accuses Russia of backing hackers that attack U.S. computer infrastructure. And these are just a few of the many disagreements between the two countries. They've recently taken to expelling each other's diplomats. Blinken says there are also many areas where they can cooperate. Lavrov says the two sides see the world differently, but he says they are willing to negotiate any issue. Personal relations between Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin have been icy, with Biden calling Putin a killer and Putin responding by challenging Biden to a debate. Blinken says he hopes his meeting with Lavrov will lead the two countries to cooperate on important world issues, while they continue to work through their differences. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.